everybody. Welcome to the XP Billionaires podcast, the RPG podcast that is like no other RPG podcast. Because I would really like to think that all of the ones out there are different from themselves in one way or another, just so there's a lot more variety and diversity on the internet. So definitely check us out, check any other one out you find. So sadly, I don't have any examples for you, but definitely look. That's all I can say. All right, I am Ray Fegrim. I am joined by Sky Knight and the Melzerker. We have got some action-packed, fun, excitement. Probably not a lot of adventure because this is more of a podcast and we're not telling a story. So we'll stick with the action and excitement at the very least. So let's say hello to the team. Sky, how are you today?
Oh, I'm all right. At time of recording, I am still playing Skies of Arcadia Legends. I'm back to that, but I'm also playing Hades on PC, which is just as good as everyone said it was, and I'm kicking myself for not starting it sooner. It's awesome. It's got one of the strongest aesthetics I've ever seen in a video game, and some crazy action and just wonderful voice acting and storytelling. So I'm super stoked. I can't wait to play more.
Sounds like you'll be playing it for a long, long time, given its gaming format. But as long as you're enjoying it, you keep at it, keep going as hard as you can, as fast as you can.
Yep. I've had a decent amount of success with the fisticuffs, which is not my usual thing, so I was kind of surprised, but it seemed to be the weapon I have the least trouble with. So there you go.
No, that's awesome. It's nice. It's a way to branch out, and maybe you'll be better at more closer combat like that in the future in other games. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm just waiting to meet Thanatos. I want to romance him.
Fair enough. All in good time.
He's pretty dreamy. I'm just gonna say.
Did you play this one?
I've been watching this one, and it is very enjoyable to watch. Like sometimes these ones were just constantly like the roguelikes aren't always fun to watch, but I'm enjoying this one.
Oh yeah.
And I like how bitchy the gods get, like when they're just like, you didn't pick my sigil, I'm coming at you and you're bad. And I'm like, ugh. I hate you all so much.
But it's so true to Greek myth, that aspect of it. The Greek gods are always depicted as very sort of mercurial and prone to error just as much as humanity. So yeah, it's so funny. One of my favorites so far is actually Artemis. She just seems to have really good boons. I love the ability she gives while I'm doing my runs through the through the underworld. It's gosh, play this game. It's not that expensive, and it's so good. It's so good.
Awesome. All right, Mel, how are you doing today? What you been up to?
I'm doing all right. I'm currently between games, but Persona Strikers is coming out soon, so once that gets delivered to me, that will be next on my list.
Yeah, we've got that coming in. I think it releases, well, it should be fairly soon. It should be
Next
2
couple
days from the
days.
point of recording. Yeah, because we've got it on pre-order too. So
as you guys are listening
right
to
away,
this,
but
like as the audience is listening to this, we will be playing.
Yeah, most likely.
Yep.
I've still personally got to finish Yakuza Like a Dragon, but Sky, I mean, you don't have anything on the PS4 right now, so you got dibs on that, and I'd love to watch you go through a Muso game just for shits and giggles. I think it'll be amazing.
Yeah, this should be funny. This will be my first, so wish me luck.
Oh, you're gonna do fine. I'll help if I can verbally. I'm not gonna take the controller away from you unless it looks really, really fun.
Eh.
You'll be fine. Don't worry. I believe in you. All right. So why don't we get into today's topic? So we have talked a lot about different characters and personalities in our RPGs and how they add depth to our stories. Every so often, however, you come across that one character that you just wish would die, but just doesn't. Whether it's an annoying party member, a villain that might kill off someone important to you, or just a random NPC that you just can't get rid of. There's just so many of them. And in honor of that hatred, this week we are going to do a top three for you. And it is exactly this. We're proudly presenting our picks for the top three characters that you wish would die, but do not. Oh my God, there's going to be some venting here, I think. A lot of venting. But that said, we are all going to start with our number three picks like we usually do. And it looks like I get to go first. So let me just take a quick sip of water here. All right, let's get this started. So for my number three, I have picked Kuze from Yakuza 0. So Kuze was one of the three Tojo clan lieutenants at the time this game was set, which was in the 80s. And he really had it out for Kiryu. First time after their first fight, he was forced into shame, which means he had to cut a pinky off. And while he did it willingly, he basically pretty much had a grudge against Kiryu after that and would continue repeatedly coming after him. He was a boss fight for multiple fights in this game, and he was just nonstop. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. You can't stop me. And you kind of do every time, but it like he on his own was a real piece of garbage. And he was actually one of the reasons a very decent character in Yakuza 0 was killed. And it was a pretty brutal killing, I have to say. I don't want to say which character or which scene because it makes it a giveaway in those. But it was a brutal murder. That sums it up. So I ended up hating the guy, not just because he kept coming, but because he just did away with an awesome, awesome person. And while he gave me some of the more epic fights in the game, I just really wanted him gone. And the only way they did that was by arresting him. And, so be it. You even find out that within the lore, he actually comes back 10 years later after he gets out of prison and gets a chance to work for the Tojo clan again. And it happens to be under the Arakawa family, and he's working with Ichiban Kasuga. So interesting little bit of side story there. Unfortunately, I can't get too much out of it because that comes from the Yakuza mobile game, which hasn't gotten a Western release yet. So unfortunate. But alrighty. So let's move on. Sky, what is your number three choice?
I'm going with Guillaume from Suikoden 3.
Oh, yes.
And this man's only saving grace is that he's an incredibly minor character. But he's still a creepy middle-aged man you meet while he's chasing around a small child who was too polite to punch him in the nose.
And she could have done it too.
Exactly. He just oozes creepy. And top of this, he's recruitable into your army. I believe he's your appraiser.
Yeah, he is.
He needs to appraise his actions. Creepy bastard.
I like what you did there.
Yes. You have to. He's not. Thankfully, given that he's your appraiser, he's not actually a playable character. He's one of your shop NPCs. But not that I would have used him anyway. But at very least, he's not going out on missions with Shabon, the small child, who is also in your army.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't even just the fact, well, I mean, obviously it was the fact that he was chasing her around the town for some weird reason that made no sense because they didn't know each other. That's the other thing to keep in mind here.
Well, they tried to make it seem like he was just like childlike and had no sense of boundaries. But the man is in his 40s, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want a stereotype, but he did have that kind of mustache.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he looked creepy. He had that
Yeah.
classic creepy, the creepy mustache and he was clearly balding and, you could tell he was older. And I mean, Shabon is 6. 6. I looked it up.
Yeah. And I honestly believe that if that was a thing, he would have had an ice cream truck. Like, that just would have added to the stereotype.
Yeah. It was a really weird inclusion into the game, and I honestly don't know why they did it. And particularly making his main interaction with the youngest non-beast playable character in the franchise.
Yeah. It's definitely a little questionable in that regard, but at least you do get to beat him up at one point in a one-on-one. So that part was
Yes, there is a duel with him. I believe mostly because he takes offense to you interrupting his game, quote unquote, with Shabon.
uh-huh. Shudder.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely grody, absolutely. All right, Mel, it's time for your number 3.
Da-da-da. Okay, all right. I'm just gonna get it out there. I knew I had to put on a Persona character, and I'm gonna get an honorable mention to Morgana, and here's why. Don't have a character tell me I can't play the game. If I have to go to bed, make it not a character, because that's really frustrating. So Persona has this thing of sometimes making annoying characters, and nobody beats it for me over Yukari from Persona 3. I don't know. I don't tend to love the lover's persona, with the exception of Rise, because she's amazing. But Yukari really hits me wrong. Like, she lashes out at people. She's sarcastic all the time. She's really mean to Junpei, who's like my boy. I'm just unimpressed by her generally. Her persona looks dumb. Her outfit's dumb, and she does no good combat like stuff either. 0 to 10 for Yukari. Shakes head.
I wasn't surprised to see this because actually she was one I considered too. She didn't quite hit my list because my primary annoyance with Yukari is that she's so just weirdly normal for a person who is highly involved with very abnormal things.
Yeah, I mean, and they try to make her more interesting in that they give her like this dark backstory. Right? 3 has all these characters with these great, histories of why they are the way they are. And like, I don't know, her thing with her mom never really hit me that hard, where it was, I don't know, it seemed like she was really blaming her mom for a situation that was shitty, and it really was more her dad's fault. And I'm really not a big fan of that plot where it's just like, I mean, I know traditionally, like, kids tend to, side with the parent who's more in the wrong sometimes, because, it's easier to forgive that behavior than to be the one who's calling them out on it.
Sure.
But it's just, I don't know. It's just none of her plot struck me. It was really disappointing overall. And then, come on, she's the lovers. I'm supposed to like her?
Yeah, that's the other thing about Yukari is that backstory you're talking about, most of it, she's not greatly affected by it. Like, she's not personally, like, it was something that was going on with her dad. And yes, that had an impact on her life because it was her father. But she didn't have the same sort of history as someone like Mitsuru or Akihiko.
Right? And theirs are so good, right?
Such good characters whose backstories weren't about, entirely about other people.
Yeah.
I mean, Yukari's only involvement in all that was basically that she was collateral damage.
Pretty much. And I don't like how they introduced her either. Like, there's that first bit of the story where you're inside the dorms and you run up to the roof and she's trying to summon her persona and she's too scared to do it. And I was just like, this is a really weak way to introduce this character, right? Like, compare that to how you unleash your persona the first time in 5, right? Where it's much more like it's the other character doesn't do something stupid for you to be a hero.
Yeah. What they tried to do was make Yukari the person that people could relate to. Like, she was the most normal of the bunch. But it meant she didn't mesh as well with the other characters who were not like normal teenagers. And so she kind of just stuck out and was, and yeah, sarcastic, kind of annoying. Like, she's just not a terribly good character. And maybe it's because, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't pick her, was simply because the part that annoyed me most about her is that she was just so normal. And like, I admit I am not the target audience for a character like Yukari. I'm not the type of person she's meant to be relatable to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're not wrong. She's definitely playing on that archetype that I'm never that game for. So she was already against a a hard road to get to me. But
yeah, no, I that being said, I totally don't blame you for picking her because she's annoying.
Yeah, the only saving grace for Yukari is that when she grows up, she gets to be a Featherman. So that's
I did think that was cute. It did, yeah. She was Featherman pink, even though.
I mean, it's Featherman pink. Yeah, let's be honest here.
Yeah, it's like, could you fall any harder into the stereotype?
Yeah, true enough. All right, those are the number 3 choices. And if these weren't bad enough, just think they can only get worse from here. So let's move on to the number 2 choices. Mine comes from one of my favorite franchises, and that is the Dot Hack franchise. We're going to go to the first version of the world, and we're going to talk about Pyros. I'm sorry, everybody, but this guy is way too into his character. Like, holy crap, this Pyros annoyed the hell out of me. And the worst part is, this was like the only heavy axe person you had in your party or available to you in the game until the third one. And that was Terajima Ryoko, who comes in at level 1 when you're supposed to be going from 50 to 75 in that game. Like, oh my God. It's just like, why did they hate on heavy axemen so much in that game? But anyway, that's besides the point.
Yeah, it's a real bloody shame because Ryoko was actually kind of fun.
Yeah. No, she was great. But then you've got Pyros, who is just like the quintessential role player, talking in ye old speak, referring to you as he of fair eyes, and using the words hark and I shall smiteth thee, and whatever the hell he says throughout the game. I kind of stopped paying attention at one point. Like, he didn't even have any fun side quests. Like, he'd get picked on by Mia all the time.
That was the one fun side quest with Pyros. And it's only because Mia spends the entire dungeon fucking with him.
Yeah, yeah, and that part's fine because it's Mia's hijinks, and that was just great. But Pyros, oh my god, I just wanted to just shunt out of a window. But like, and like we know he doesn't die because he comes back in the GU games as Pyros the Third, and he's even more outlandish because he's in this gaudy, solid, shiny gold armor. And like from what we understand, he apparently works for CC Corp now as one of the graphic designers. Like, like why would they hire him with this personality? Like he must be really good at his job because like I'm assuming that in his job he has like this little cubicle that's isolated from the rest of the whole bloody company.
Yeah. And like that new username, like that is so him. Like it's why is he Pyros the Third?
Yeah, I don't even want to know what Pyros the Second looked like. Like, no, no, thank you.
Like it's just picked to be like pretentious because like it's not even the next number. Like why wasn't he Pyros the Second? Right? Like
Makes me wonder if there's some side story that explains that I never found. But I don't want to go looking for it. So if there is, don't nobody find it for me. I'm good, thanks.
Yeah. Listeners, you have to understand. Like, Rafe and I have been together for 15 years, and the entire time I've known him, he's had a hate on for Pyros.
It's true. I will be the first to admit it. Well, yeah.
And you don't normally feel like you don't normally get that annoyed by a character.
It's true. It's
like,
true. I have like a good solid threshold, but apparently, nope, not with him. Not at all.
So tell me, Mel, what did you think of Pyros?
I mean, I feel like you're gonna know this. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, we're gonna sort of get into something very similar in one of mine. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say beyond all that. You know, yeah, he won't die. He just won't die.
He's like a really large shiny cockroach. He just won't die.
He's one of those guys that you play with, and every time you just kind of roll your eyes, hoping he'll stop, and he just keeps showing up.
And you know what? And you know what's worse of it all is that if you were playing like actual role playing with him IRL, he'd be the ultimate rules Nazi.
Oh, he 100% is.
Absolutely would be.
He's that guy who shows up, he brings a snack or something, so you're like okay with him being there. And then, you know, he starts talking and you're like, oh my god. And then he's arguing the rules and you're like, can we just play the fucking game?
Yeah, he is totally that personality type. And, you know, and also the type who just won't take a hint.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me calm down a little bit. Sky, you give us your number 2. So yeah. Let me take a moment. Go ahead.
yeah, Pyros takes a bit out of you. So if you thought my last one was creepy, this one's worse.
I love it when you start a sentence like that. It's just fantastic. I don't know why.
So my second choice is the Wanderer Mayuan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but here we go. From Shadow Hearts, the first one. So this character was a terrible idea. All around. So who this guy is, he's a wandering acupuncturist, which is fine. And he's the guy that can upgrade your judgment ring, which is basically the spinning wheel you use, and you have to hit sections on it to make attacks successfully, if you're not familiar with the series. So he's cast as a wanderer, so there's an excuse for you to run into him in every town, basically. It's a little silly. But the creepy bit about this guy, every time he treats one of the male characters, there's a very strong implication of sexual assault. Yes, you heard me correctly. One of those male characters is a literal child. Yeah, I know. It's bad. I love this game, but oh my god, this is just why? Why did they do this? I honestly try to put this character out of my mind most of the time. Like, I had to think really hard to drag this jackass up from my memory. One of the things I really hate about him, too, is that he's one of the few queer-coded characters in Shadow Hearts as well, because you don't get the same reaction when he works on the female characters. Like, he basically gets a non-response from Alice and Marguerite, and meanwhile the guys completely freak out and say things that imply that this gentleman lets his hands wander.
Well, I mean, it's that same kind of like quote unquote comedic trope that you'll see in other JRPGs too. Like, when you go through the whole, I hate to beat a dead horse on this one, but like you go through the whole kanji thing through Persona 4, where like everything is construed as gay or how you want to put it after, you've befriended him. You guys are hanging out in the camps and like, Yosuke is being very, very awkward and is like, is it safe to be near this guy, like in bed overnight? Like, what's going on here? Like, it's what they do. They really shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, certainly we can have a conversation about homophobia in JRPGs, and this is another example. This is another example of it because he is one of the only queer-coded characters, and yeah. I mean, there are other queer-coded characters who are done much better, but I mean, one of them is a literal vampire. I mean, as much as I love Keith.
Yeah.
This is not the kind of representation we need. Let's put it that way.
No, 100%. You're absolutely right. But I mean, maybe we'll see it change. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I do think. I know that there can still be a lot of homophobia and whatnot in JRPGs even now, but at very least, I don't think today they would make the decision to have a character like this.
I haven't seen much in any of the more recent games I've played, at the very least, that have come out in the last year or so. Doesn't mean it's not there. I could have easily missed something, but at the very least, it's a lot less. Like, the only time I've actually really seen a lot of oddly queer-coded content in any way was from the Trails games, where, throughout the whole series, you've got one of the NPC students in the book club writing yaoi fan fiction.
Well, that's also part of being like a teenager.
but no. But the point that I'm getting at is that, Reen finds out what's being written, and hell, he decides to like help proofread and do all this other stuff. Like, he found it a little bit strange, but he had no hate on for it, and he offered to help out. Like, I think that's positive.
I will maintain forever that Reen Schwarzer would have been a much better character if he was gay.
Well, fair enough. Well, the possibilities are definitely there.
Or bi, I guess. But like, I'm sorry, but the harem shit and is just so tired.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's got great chemistry with some of the male characters. So
no, absolutely. Honestly, I honestly would have paired him with Elliot if that was an option. Like if that was my option there.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
And that's one of the tragedies of these games. Like you can also point, of course, to something like Persona 5 for stuff like this as well, because they miss out on these interesting opportunities for relationships simply because they're homophobic. And I think we're way off topic now.
Yeah, a little bit. Let's jump on to the next one. Mel, number 2. What do you got?
All right, number 2. Okay, I'm going to touch on one of the tropes I hate in games, and it's when there's a child who's not a child in the party. And there's lots of these, but I decided to focus on Limo from Star Ocean: The Last Hope, because again, this is a game I really loved. And she rubs me wrong. Again, the character design is really kind of weird. Like, she's got all the mannerisms of a kid, but the game keeps insisting she's 15. And it's just weird. The idea is she's so traumatized, she stopped aging, but then if she stopped aging, she's not 15. As if that's, okay on its own. But just, she's this emotionless little doll creature, and it just feels creepy. I don't even know if I can really put into words exactly why it always gets me, but I just feel very uncomfortable around this character, and I don't know who decided that was a good idea.
It's always essentially been like Japan's way of circumventing the law about, underage romance or underage sex or whatever you want to call it, because this is their loophole. Like, she's actually 3,000 years old, but, her body just didn't grow into that age. But that's okay. We got her as 3,000, so she's legal. Go for it. You want to. And it is kind of gross. I completely agree to that fact 100%.
Yeah, like I said, it's just one example of this thing that always rubs me weird.
Yeah, I just looked up a picture because this is a game I haven't played, and wow.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, she's like a cool character as far as combat goes. Like, she's always like drawing sigils and like there's some stuff there, but the game never treats it like she's not to be ogled to some degree.
Ew.
Yeah, I don't know. She has her pet dog is Cerberus. That's kind of cool.
Can't argue with that.
Like there's nothing wrong with the character being or even looking a little bit younger, as long as she's not being treated as a romanticized or sexual object.
Yeah, and I think it's the dollification of her too is part of the thing that feels so weird. Like she's just this empty, mindless thing that you can just. Yeah, because I was thinking about it. There's a child character in in one of the Elder Scrolls games. She's a member of the Dark Brotherhood, and she's a vampire, and she's a kid. But the game treats it very differently. Like, she curses, and she's angry, and you're like, okay, this is an adult, right? Like, there's a different... And again, never sexualizes her, right? But this game just like, ugh. Even thinking about it, I love this game, but ugh.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of what they did to Jack the Ripper in Fate Apocrypha and the anime series. That was completely an unnecessary setup for what could have been an awesome assassin character.
Yeah, like there is this definite, like I can think of several examples of this trope myself. And like it's always at least slightly kind of gross. It's not just that they're chronologically older but look younger. Like if they were still treated as, in a non-sexual way, then I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Then it would just be like a fact about the character. But the fact that it seems to be an excuse to sexualize a character, a young-looking character, is just super gross.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we have got a lot of cringeworthy characters, and we still each have one last one to talk about. I don't think my number one is going to be as cringeworthy as some of the other ones we've had, but well, it's still one annoying sumbitch. My number one choice is Conrad Werner from Mass Effect. This is the kind of personality that I just can't stand, especially in real life. Um, it is the personality of the ultimate fanboy or fan person, if you will, because oh my god, I've seen it on all sides of the chain. So, for those not familiar, every time Shepard would visit the Citadel in the first Mass Effect game, you have the opportunity to interact with this man, Conrad Werner. He comes up to you, basically is like, "Hey, you're my hero. I worship you. You are awesome. Can I get an autograph? Can I get a photo?" Like this. And the thing is, he just doesn't go away. You have so many different conversations from him. His idol worship is creepy and stalkerish. Like it eventually got to the point where I remember having my shepherd beat his ass down and tell him to get a life at the end of all of this. Like that was actually an option. Instead of just politely saying, "Hey, please go away." No, I slugged the bastard. Just knocked his ass out. I was so hoping to find out that he had been wiped out when the Reapers attacked Earth in Mass Effect 3.
He didn't.
No. and yeah, and that's the worst part of it all, because out of nowhere in the third game, he shows up on some other planet, says he's cleaned up his act and wants to help for the cause. And I'm like, oh, all right, I'm going to use you because you have like resources that will help me fight the Reapers. But that's essentially it. Like, I mean, the long and short of it for me is simply this. You don't have to physically squee like a teenager when you meet your hero. Do it on the inside. That's totally fine. Like I've been fortunate enough to meet my childhood hero once. And I'll admit I stuttered a bit, but we did have like a legitimate conversation. I kept my shit together, but in my mind, like I was gone. Like I am amazed I remember it because my mind was going like a billion miles a minute, like holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Ah, this is amazing. But like there's nothing wrong with being excited about something like that. Just don't get obsessive and stalkery. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that was in a situation where, that person was specifically meeting fans.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, like I can't imagine people not like just being like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," right in front of them, right? Like with any celebrity, with any of your heroes, like whatever. Like there's going to be people who are going to do that. But like be calm, collected. They are still people. Like don't jump and bump into them and be all like, "Oh my god, this is so great." Like there are limits.
Yeah, exactly.
I forgot about Conrad Werner until you brought it up. So thanks for that, first off. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're welcome.
But yeah, he's just uncomfortable. Like at first you're like, okay, I'll be nice to the guy, and it's just every single time, and he won't take no for an answer. And that's the hard part, right? Like you say, dude, back off. And he's not listening.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, it's even like it's got an extra layer of creepiness when you're playing femshep.
Yeah, I don't know if the interaction is any different depending on the shepherds. Like I play femshep myself, so
I yeah, and I'm not saying it is, but there's that whole, a guy gets that obsessive and creepy that can also lead to other things.
oh, absolutely,
And
absolutely,
it's
and
much
that can
more,
be with anyone. Like,
yeah, and that's why it's a little creepier when it's femshep, because it's just like, okay, now, like, I'm not saying he couldn't be gay, but there are certain things female or AFAB people fear.
yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right, we got another number one coming up. Let's hear your rage-induced number one choice, Sky.
Okay. This is gonna need a little bit of prefacing given the nature of some of the other characters I picked. I am not saying she's a worse person than the other people I've mentioned.
Fair.
This is more of a case of her just being such a prominent thorn in my side while I was playing. See, the thing is, Guillaume and Mei Yuan, like, they're very minor characters. Even if Mei Yuan you see, in every town, but it's for a fairly brief interaction. My number one is Adelie from .hack.gu. I am not without sympathy for Adelie, but she needed to be in therapy, not overly invested in an online game. She's deeply fucked up. And like I said, I am not without sympathy. I too was someone who was bullied, who had issues with social stuff in school. Like I get her on that level. The problem is that she's her own worst enemy. She really doesn't listen to other people or have any sort of worldliness or, realistic perspective on everything around her. Hiseo really blows up at her in the first game. And yeah, maybe he went too far. But the thing is, she had spent the last however long pushing all of his buttons. But she is completely blind to that sort of thing. And she forces her opinions on others. Like, for a person who's supposed to be, like, really sweet and innocent and naive, she's completely pig-headed. Like, she really tries to force her pacifism down Hiseo's throat. Later on, she refuses for ages to see what's wrong with Sakaki, despite the fact, she's been with Hiseo for some time, like, she's got friends now, and I understand she's been manipulated and such by Sakaki, but really, like, she has other people in her life. And she is, in theory, in love with Hiseo. I have never known a character so obviously designed to be sympathetic, but also so freaking pig-headed that you're just like, why? Woman, why? I understand. She, the player behind Adelie is a fucked up teenager who really needs help. But, I mean, some of us who have traumas, who had difficulty in school and were bullied, blah, 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 we don't let it make us worse people. Or at very least, yeah, I guess that's what I mean. Like, she's just like, yeah, she's screwed up, but she's her own worst enemy. And she really shouldn't be doing what she's doing. And I honestly, I can't stand this character. I really can't.
Well, I totally get it. Like, yeah, I mean, I tried to use her as little as possible throughout the game, but trying to think, did I have another Harvest Cleric in my
Well,
team throughout the game?
and that's just it. There is no other Harvest Cleric until Sheena wakes up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
so she's your predominant healer.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating because it feels the game is forcing her down your throat the entire way. And I do think that's a big problem, particularly when you have a character like Adelie who can be a bit much.
No, I absolutely. Alrighty, we got one last number one. Let's see what kind of rage-inducing stuff Mel has got for us to cap off today's episode.
Ooh, see, this is the pressure point. This is the hard part. It's not starting, it's finishing. All right, I'm gonna finish off with a game that many of us have played, Mass Effect, and primarily the first one. But hey, season 3, it's Ashley Williams, the racist human. I hate Ashley. She's awful. She's constantly belittling other races, and she's so exclusionary and awful, and I don't understand, first off, why anyone would have her live through the suicide mission, let alone why anyone would make her a Spectre. Spectres are intergalactic, like, police, almost, essentially. It's Secret Service. Like, why would you put someone who is a hardcore racist in an interplanetary, interspecies law enforcement area? Like, it just seems like such an example of someone who would put humanity first and just antagonize other species. Like, it's such a stupid idea to have the second Spectre be Ashley. There's also this scene in Mass Effect 3 that always gets me, where, in the third game, I'm watching videos because, of course, I didn't keep her alive and I never will. But she's talking to Tali, and if you've played the game where you've been romancing Ashley and then you decide to be with Tali, she has this really aggressive conversation with her where she talks about Tali getting her big girl name. And I was just, like, shocked because, like, naming is a really important thing to that species, and to say that to someone who, like, is on your team and who you've known for this entire series, regardless of if they're dating your ex, is really sketchy. Like, I was really hoping she had improved in some way over the course of your death, but there's really very little signs that she's grown in any meaningful way besides getting a promotion because she knew you.
Yeah, she's pretty disgusting in that regard. Absolutely. I kept her alive. I don't know why. I did not realize that choice was that important. So this was Mass Effect was actually my first major Western RPG where choices really mattered. So yeah, she ended up staying alive for me. So I saw a bunch of different scenes with her. But yeah, like going through her story, it wasn't pleasant. Like, I guess, having that whole like military brat history, you kind of think of things in a different way. So
Yeah, from what I gathered, to be clear to the listeners, I haven't played all of Mass Effect. I did play a bit of the first game, but I have seen most of the story because Rafe played it. At like Ashley just had this nasty chip on her shoulder most of the way, and I think, Rafe, if I remember correctly, you kept you were using her because she was kind of a nice because she just sort of happened to fit in well with how you liked your party setup.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. And so you kept using her even though you're just like, hey, she's kind of a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, it was just for the first game. Like, she was pretty much a distant memory in the third one, and I used other party members. But yeah,
Yeah, you did. Though, I mean, I will say, I remember you playing Mass Effect 3, and that scene where Ashley is hungover so badly. Like, she's lying on the floor and she cannot get up.
I took so much satisfaction in that scene. I was like, damn right you're hungover. That's right.
And
I hope you have a
just
terrible
makes
migraine.
relentless fun.
Can't you show up and, like, talk really loudly at her?
Yep.
And be like, good morning, Lieutenant.
Yep.
It's a hilarious scene, and like, as far as I'm concerned, that scene is like the only reason to keep Ashley alive because it's so funny. And it's kind of nice to see Ashley, get what she deserves for once.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't consider death a punishment, really. But yeah, she's just like, she's super racist, and I remember seeing you play, and I was just like, whoa, she is not a nice person.
Yeah. All right, so that is going to be it for our top 3 for this week. Holy cow, did we go through a lot today? Yeah, so are there any characters that we've missed? Are there any games that we should be worried about seeing certain characters that are going to be absolutely terrible? Please let us know. We need to be prepared for these things. You can do that through our email address, xpbillionaires@gmail.com. Or you can hit us up on our social media. You can find me on Twitter at BillionairesXP, or hit me up on Instagram at Rafe Fegram for Gunpla stuff and the occasional video game bit here and there. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and SkyKnight.xp on Instagram.
And Mel, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at Feminist Gamer on Instagram or Feminist Gamer 3 on Twitter. Or you can check out my Twitch stream, Darkness and Dragons, where I GM every Wednesday.
Awesome. And as always, check out xpbillionaires.ca for everything else that we do. Written work, reviews, write-up, roundups. And of course, if you feel like supporting us and what we do here, there are links to coffee to give us some donations on there as well. So definitely check that out. All right, so that is going to be it for us this week. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, even if you hate a character so bad, keep gaming in case you get to watch them die. All right, see you next week.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.